For basically all of history, artists have had someone to be afraid of. Once upon a time, it was kings who could just silence you with a single order. Then it was churches deciding what was holy and what was forbidden. And after that, you had entire states that could literally erase you and your work for creating the wrong kind of art.
But what happens when the force that controls what you see isn't a person or a government, but a piece of code? What happens when censorship doesn't show up with a loud bang, but just a quiet, invisible disappearance? So what we're going to get into here isn't just about the internet or social media. This is really about the newest chapter in a very, very old story. The fight over who gets to control art, and maybe more importantly, who decides what the rest of us are even allowed to see. To really get how we ended up here, we've got to rewind a bit, back to the beginning. When artists first started moving online, the internet felt like a genuine revolution. It was this digital utopia, a canvas with no limits, promising a kind of freedom that had never, ever existed before.
Just think about what this actually meant for a second. For the first time, all the old gatekeepers were gone. There were no galleries to turn you down, no curators who could ignore you, no borders that could stop your audience from finding you. Anyone with an internet connection could put their work out there for the entire world. And, well, this led to an absolute explosion of creativity. You had political art that could challenge power directly, experimental stuff that broke every rule, and honest conversations about bodies and identity that were finally out in the open. So for this brief, amazing moment, the digital canvas felt totally free. But history has a funny way of teaching us the same lessons. And one of the big ones is this: whenever and wherever art starts to get powerful, some kind of control is always, always right around the corner. That digital utopia? Yeah, it wasn't built to last. And at first, that control was pretty polite. It didn't call itself censorship, of course. It used these nice, soft corporate words, right? Like community guidelines or content moderation. The platforms all said they were just neutral parties, just trying to keep everyone safe.
And this right here really captures the huge shift. Old school censorship was loud. A king's decree, a government ban. That was a very clear, very obvious no. You knew for sure that you were being censored. But now it's quiet. An artist's work, political stuff, protest images, queer art, it doesn't really get banned. It just disappears from your feed, not because it broke a law, but because it's inconvenient.
And this brings us to a really crucial idea. This new system, we call it algorithmic gatekeeping. It's basically this automated system that has become the new curator of our digital world. But here's the key. It doesn't make choices based on what's artistically important or socially valuable. Nope. It makes its decisions based on one single, simple question. What's going to keep people on the platform the longest? And that quote really gets to the heart of it all. The algorithm's not asking, is this art profound? It's asking, will this keep them scrolling? Art that's difficult or shocking or politically complicated, well, that's a risk. It might make a user uncomfortable, and an uncomfortable user might just log off. So the algorithm quietly pushes it down. It's not forbidden, it's just made invisible. In this world, visibility is everything, and the value of art is suddenly up for negotiation.
But as new as all this feels, it's really not. Think about it. Empires have always erased images. Churches have always controlled symbols. And states have always used art for propaganda. The urge to monitor and control art that challenges the status quo, that's as old as power itself. The only thing that's different now are the tools.
And if you just look at this comparison, you can see how perfectly these new tools mirror the old ones. What used to be the king's decree is now the platform's community guideline. The censor's official stamp of disapproval, that's now a little removed post notification. State propaganda has its modern-day equivalent in the promoted post that you can't get out of your feed. And the banned books from the past? Well, meet the shadow ban, where an artist's reach is secretly throttled without them ever knowing why.
So what really makes today's version of control so different? It really just comes down to these three things. The speed, it's instant. The scale, it's global, affecting billions of us all at once. And maybe most importantly, the invisibility of it all. There's no single person to point your finger at, just this incredibly complex, hidden system. Control has learned how to hide behind a friendly user interface.
But this is definitely not where the story ends, because wherever you find control, you are going to find resistance. And artists, like they always have, are adapting. They're finding these really clever and creative ways to push back against this new invisible power. So how are they pulling this off? Well, some are basically learning to speak in code, using abstract images and symbols to hide their real meaning from the machines scanning their work. Others are just leaving, moving to new decentralized platforms that aren't run by one big company. And some, and I think this is amazing, are turning the act of being censored into their art, calling attention to the very systems trying to shut them up. The digital canvas is now a battlefield.
And if there is one thing history has shown us time and time again, it's this. You cannot truly destroy art. It is just too resilient. You can try to silence it, sure, but it'll just change its shape. It'll go underground. It will wait. And then, eventually, it will always, always come back. And usually, it's even stronger than it was before.
So, the question we really need to ask ourselves is no longer just, is art being censored online? Because the answer to that is, pretty clearly, yes. The bigger, more important question, the one that's going to define this era, is this. Who gets to decide what's worth our attention? Who holds the power of visibility?
Because in the end, it doesn't matter if the tool is a king's sword or a line of code. The fight is the same. The struggle for freedom of expression is timeless, and right now it's being fought on this brand new digital canvas. So yeah, the tools are different, but the battle, it's the same as it ever was.